Hi, I'm Aimee, and the chosen product for this assignment is New Zealand's ground beef meat. New Zealand's beef is globally unique and is a premium product in large markets around the world in order to meet the growing consumer demand for high-quality grass-fed beef. In international markets, it is classed as frozen bovine meat. It's considered nutrient-dense, juicy, and full of flavour. The US is New Zealand's largest beef market. They import 50% of New Zealand's low-fat beef, of which 10% of the meat goes into McDonald's burgers. In this report, I examined 5 key activities in the ground beef supply chain. At each of the 5 stages, I incorporated 2 regulatory influences that I found interesting. At the top of the supply chain that you can see, activity 1 is the finishing farm. This is where the farmer brings the cows up to weight and ready for slaughter. The 2 regulations that I chose for this activity is the National Animal Identification and Tracing Act 2012 and Pest Management. Activity 2 explains the transport requirements. This is when the cow leaves the farm and on stock trucks. The incorporated regulations in this section are the Animal Code of Welfare and the Transporting Licensing Rules. Activity 3 explains the processor's requirements. This is when the stock is delivered to the processing facility. So these are the food hygiene standards and the food safety requirements. And Activity 4 includes the export of the beef product and food safety requirements from the international retailer. And lastly, Activity 5 covers the requirements from the consumers such as cultural preferences and traceability. So I'm going to explain in depth the 2 significant regulatory influences that I enjoyed researching and writing about. These 2 are the importance of New Zealand's food hygiene requirements, which in specific this example falls under the processor, and secondly I'll discuss the significance of traceability of this product, as we can see in the supply chain that falls under the consumer. So New Zealand's Parliamentary Council Office has set laws and regulations surrounding food safety and food hygiene in New Zealand, which processing facilities must follow. This is to meet the major expectations from importing countries like the US who want certification of these practices. Retailers and consumers want to be assured they're buying and consuming high quality, safe food that is processed in a hygienic, accredited facility. Sterile working facilities and accurate storage temperatures of processed meat must be upheld and maintained throughout the whole processing plant. This can be achieved through the monitoring and controlling of temperatures, health and hygiene requirements of staff and visitors, as well as the cleaning and sanitising management systems. Self-regulators such as Beef and Lamb have their own initiatives that assure consumers that their processing facilities and staff are consistently meeting these hygiene standards. Inspection is done both before and after slaughter and at various points throughout the processing and dressing operation. Constant verification of all plant operations certifies the high-quality hygienic manufacturing practices. For every person who doesn't comply or commits an offence against the food hygiene standards is liable on conviction to a fine not exceeding $200. Conclusions can be drawn from the impact of this regulation. Considering how strict New Zealand food safety and hygiene are surrounding the food products, I would expect the fines in regard to food hygiene to be somewhat more substantial. If there aren't penalties for non-compliance, then wouldn't there be a greater threat to New Zealand meat? New Zealand is globally recognised for our trade reputation. If the exported meat product is not meeting national and international food hygiene standards, then international retailers will cancel contracts with New Zealand beef agencies. This would be a threat to New Zealand's international exports and overall market share. And in turn, the potential loss of market share would be an incentive for food agencies to comply with food hygiene standards to reduce the risk of loss of market share. Opportunities from this regulation have come up for agencies such as Beef and Lamb to make their own initiatives and rules surrounding food hygiene. This ultimately gives their company a competitive advantage. So the second regulatory issue that I'd like to go into detail about is the traceability of food product. Traceability allows food businesses to target the products affected by a food safety problem. This minimises the disruption to trade and any potential public health risk. In the US, there are food industry traceability standards that are governed by federal laws. A significant area in the Food Safety Modernisation Act of 2011 covers traceability of food products. This act emphasises more rapid and accurate determination of foodborne illnesses and where the outbreak initiated. This Act allows the expansion of the FDA's authority to access company records from the food production facilities, and these regulations within this Act also apply to exporting countries such as New Zealand who wish to export their food to the US. Traceability regulations have been constructed due to consumer demand for additional information on the origin of food. This is due in part to the increased level of global trading and the establishment of diverse imported food products. These include where the product was produced, what environmental and employment practices were followed, and what processing methods were used. Consumers' right to know where their food has come from is a legitimate objective for countries around the world. And criminal penalties for this violation of this Act include significant fines, a potential 1-year jail term, or the fines range from $100,000 for an individual and double for organisations. The disadvantages of this regulation on producers and retailers in the supply chain include the cost of implementing traceability systems. Depending on the depth of data needed, traceability software ranges in price from $150,000 to $4 million. Conclusions can be drawn from this impact of the regulation. For example, the large cost of traceability systems could impose potential inefficiencies on the supply chain and possible market segmentation. However, on a broad scale, the traceability systems are of great benefit to countries like the US, as they positively impact consumer confidence in their country's food supply. Without it, then there's a risk of not finding out whether diesel contamination had initiated, which in turn would affect this product supply chain and potentially other products who use the same facilities or transporting services too. The importance of traceability initiatives shows the importance of traceability initiatives at not only one stage of the supply chain but all of them. Thank you very much.